Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is your podcast host. This is Yadida Span. Well, I'm here to talk to you. I want to welcome you. Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk with Yadida. Honestly, it's been a little while since I had a real talk with you. I've really been taking some time to process and living and experiencing in my own life things that were very unexpected and painful, even at the same time. How about you? How are you doing in the midst of all of this? One thing about it is that we keep on going. My other podcast is Don't Give Up. Don't y'all live the way I say podcast. It's a podcast, but it's called Don't Give Up. And then I have another one that is Unapologetically Purple. As a parent, I've had to advocate and speak and help people and help them to try to understand epilepsy and special needs. And in the midst of this pandemic, I realize people still don't get it. They still don't understand what a lot of people go through. I mean, that helps me to segue into the topic for Real Talk. I've been thinking about all of this. I've been thinking about the fact that, I was having a talk with someone today, and we're seeing how changes are being made, and now things are happening where they're offering up for the summertime in a particular city for people who are living in NYCHA and the projects. They're saying, okay, we're going to give them air conditioners, and the reason being is because in New York City they have what you call cooling stations. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but when it's super hot there, you can go and walk into a place that's a cooling station, like, I don't know, the Salvation Army, or I think maybe I don't know if some banks had cooling stations, but I know they became cooling stations because it was just so hot, and some people didn't have air conditioning, and so now they are offering up to give people air conditionings because they won't have these cooling stations open due to the pandemic and I want to call it isolation, but the social distancing and what have you. Now, people are able to get food and different things like that more readily, and people are being a lot more lenient with people who are struggling to pay bills than they were before. Landlords are being more lenient with people who, once again, are not able to make their payment. Companies are making it easier for people who are struggling to get loans. And once again, people who were possibly facing a foreclosure are finding it a bit easier in this time because there's something that is being extended, and that is simply a word that is called mercy. In a way, yes, this makes us very happy to see that these changes are being made, and yet at the same time, for me, it feels a little frustrating. I think about a scripture in the Bible where it says, the poor you will have with you always. And I sit here and I wonder, why is it in this world we wait until there's a pandemic, until there's some type of catastrophic event before we act like we're human? Before we act like people need mercy without having to jump through hoops, or need mercy, that single mom who never thought she would be one, who normally in most cases has been ostracized, has been ridiculed, has been judged. Now, in a time where people are losing their lives constantly, now the world says, because we're experiencing what you experience, now we'll see it from your lens and from your scope. And some don't, but many do, because they felt what it feels like to be the one who is disenfranchised, to be the one on the opposite side who has had to go to the food pantry, embarrassed, some not wanting to go, because people look at you when you're struggling. They look at you differently. They look at you as if you're stupid, which you are not. They look at you as if you are dumb, and you are not. They look at you as if you're the only one who didn't plan, and you are not. All of a sudden, because those paychecks are not coming into them, and they feel what it's like to go through loss, to lose loved ones. Some people who never lost loved ones before and didn't really show empathy now are learning what it feels like to be in pain, and no one wants to be there. And I am saddened for those who are there. But is this what it takes for us to really embrace humanity? A catastrophic pandemic where people are dying constantly? Is this what pricks the hearts of people? Because now they know what it's like to hurt, to be without, to feel pain, to wonder how you're going to feed your child or how you're going to make ends meet? Is this what it had to take in order for mercy to be extended from mankind to mankind? Why? I asked this question. I guess this is why it took me a little while to come on to Real Talk, because this is real talk that's hard to say and hard to hear and difficult to live and more difficult to embrace, that the world has been in this selfish state, thinking about what it can do. What can I do for me? What can I do for me? And not really thinking about those who are struggling. Not because they did something wrong, just because life happens. Why? Why does it have to take this? This is extreme. Before we finally turn and say, God, this is bigger than us. This is bigger than humans. This is big. We need your help. Why did it have to take this for people to turn and start to say, in God we must trust? It's in the courts. It's in the courts. We see it up there. In God we trust. But yet so many people that have been facing evictions and foreclosures and going through domestic violence and whatever else it is have been shamed and belittled and made to feel like nothing. Because other people weren't going through their struggle. They weren't feeling their pain, their shame, and their embarrassment. And so others stood upon pedestals of pride and arrogance, while others scrambled and crawled and tried to figure out, how am I going to make it to the next day? How am I going to feed my children? Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want to do better, but because the world, people need help. No one in this life was supposed to walk this life alone and try to figure out things all by themselves. That is not the way that it was ever supposed to be. But yet it is the way that it was. People walking by people who have tears in their eyes, ignoring their very apparent hurt and pain and shame for no apparent reason, simply because someone can say, well, it's not me, I don't care. Is that how we were supposed to have lived before this? It's just me, myself, and I. It's just my family, and I don't care about what you're facing. The guilt, the harassment, people who are constantly targeted and treated with disrespect, and doors have been closed to them simply because of who people think they are? How is it that we don't get to really know people and really, it was amazing. Many people go into court, and the one thing that a lawyer will say sometimes, no one wants to hear your story. Just fix it. No one wants to hear your pain. Just fix it. Well, people need to hear people's stories. People don't get where they are without having a story. That just doesn't make sense. If someone is in court and they're concerned, trying to make their bills or whatever it is, it's because, and you all know this is a very real podcast, we are in with our babies and stuff, so you're going to hear a little more noise as I was taping in the laboratory. Anyway, listen. The stories count. The real truths count. The real stories count. What people are going through and have been through way before this ever happened, and people shut their ears to people's suffering, to their very real apparent suffering that got them to where they were. How can we still shut our ears to people who are suffering? I'm glad that, yes, we see that the stimulus is here and different things. It's going to help, But why did it have to get to this point before it was easier for people to get the help that they needed? I'm concerned about all the people who didn't get the help that they needed and just took their lives because they saw no light at the end of the tunnel. They were in despair. And they were ridiculed. And all they could think of is, I don't know how I'm going to make it. Where were the people then? And don't get me wrong. For those of you who have families of people who took their lives, I am so saddened. And you have my deepest sympathy. And I am not regarding you, but I am regarding those who could have made it easier and chose not to. Why? Why? When you can do better and you see the widows and you see the single moms and you see the single dads and you see the married couples who are struggling, and we simply look and say, well, that's them. It doesn't matter that he's beating the daylights out of her. It doesn't matter that she's beating him up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that mom is struggling so much that she feels like she's about to lose it. It doesn't matter. Let's make it difficult for them. Let's make it hard for them. Instead of help them. Instead of extend mercy. Instead of show grace. It doesn't matter that they went into prison wrongfully. We're not in there. We don't have to eat the food. We're not locked in, even though we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. It doesn't matter, the world has said. It doesn't matter, the earth has said. It doesn't matter, the boss has said to the woman whose child all of a sudden was diagnosed with an illness, or the parents who had to take days off from work in order to be there for their children who they thought they were going to lose. It doesn't matter, the world has said. It doesn't matter, the world has said. Yet, this is not the way that God ever intended for it to be. I look at the whole thing with even special needs, and if you listen to my other page, I will always say that every child is special and every child has needs. But I discovered for many people, the phraseology, whether they actually said it out of their mouths or not, has been, it doesn't matter what your child is going through. It doesn't matter. I've heard people say to me, and it bothered me so much, I've worked with those type of children before. I hate hearing that. It's not many things that I say I hate. But how can one say that when every child is different? Every DNA is different. How is that possible? To categorize and to shame and then to act like you don't do it because you really don't care. It doesn't matter, the world has said. It has said it to those who needed to go to hospitals and didn't have insurance. I heard a story. I was speaking to a woman who definitely is a strong advocate even for epilepsy. And I can put this on this page, but I'm putting all of this together because I'm looking at how the world has been so unkind. A world that has said to a little boy that needed meds, you don't have insurance. Your parent can't pay for it. Sorry, we can't help you. It doesn't matter. How is this possible that even in religious communities, people have been molested and abused and ostracized? And because of the prominent name of the ministry or the pastor, women who have been hoodwinked and duped and all of these things, and people, instead of protecting and covering, have shut their ears like the three monkeys, hear no, see no, speak no evil. But when it comes to standing up for justice, we have to sometimes speak about these things and don't further victimize people who have been called victims. How have we done this? It doesn't matter. The world has said. And yet God has been calling for each and every single one of us to operate in love. He has said, regardless of what we do and what we give, how some people will say, oh, I helped this person. Look at me. Pat, pat, pat on my back. Oh, I gave this person that. The world has said, pat, pat, pat on my back. How is it that we do this? There's a scripture that says, but by the grace of God, there go I. And so the world ostracizes, and the world creates categories of influence. This category, these are the people who these are the haves over here, and over there are the have-nots. Well, isn't it amazing that in this day, the haves have become the have-nots, and they now can feel what the have-nots have gone through. And we all bleed and we all hurt together. So it makes no sense that back then, all of these invisible barriers and lines were set up to separate. When we are all human. And we have discovered in the midst of this pandemic that we all breathe the same air and it affects all of us. This is real talk. Real talk doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always sound good. It doesn't always make us feel good. It does not. Real talk can be painful sometimes, but real talk must be true. I have experienced people trying to shame me with their real talk, which is not true. What about you? Have you ever had to be silent when you wanted to stand up and fight? Have you ever had to be silent when you know people were shaming and not saying the truth about you, but it seemed so real in their mind until it was scary? When they called you a liar, when they said you were worthless, when they said you weren't trying to do anything, when they called you less than, when they said you weren't enough, when they said you'd never get better, when they said your life would never change. Did you own that, my friend? When they said that you would always be homeless, when they said you would always be without, when they said your business would never thrive, when they said your children wouldn't amount to anything. And I hope you haven't said that. And if you have, go run to them and apologize. I believe that parents need to apologize to their children so we can teach our children how to apologize to us. I feel like we all need to apologize to each other because we are all human. And we are all humanity. In order for things to get better, we have to make the necessary changes within ourselves first. And then we can be there to be a help to others. Glory to God. We have to make these changes. And listen, I know the stimulus is coming and all these things, but it doesn't mean that you should stop trying. I was reading in the Bible the other day about this widow, and her husband had passed away, and she had her children, her sons, and she didn't know what to do. She was in debt. And back then, you're in debt, they're going to try to take your kids or something like that. And God forbid, we need to pray against them doing that now. And so she was in debt. And the only thing she knew to do was to go to the prophet, the man of God, and to seek his wisdom. She knew he was a man of God. And I'm sorry for when you've sought wisdom from people of God and they have hurt you instead of helped you. It's not that I did it, but sometimes you just need to hear somebody say, I'm so sorry you went through. I'm saddened. My heart is grieved that you went through that. And so she goes to the man of God and he asks her this question: what do you have in your house? And at first she says, I have nothing but a container of oil. So first she said, I have nothing, but the conjunction came in, but. Listen, a conjunction, a but, can change everything. And please stay in a good place, right? Because then the enemy will have you like, she said but. No, the word but is a contrast against despair, against hopelessness. It's a contrast that says, in spite of all of this, I have nothing, but I actually have something. But a bottle of a container of oil. So she really did not have nothing. She had something. She just didn't know what to do with it. And so my prayer is for you. Yes, this help is here. Thank goodness that they're seeing that people, this should have happened before. People needed help before they did. We all need help in some way. Even if you're rich, you still need help. You need help with your mind. Rich people hurting themselves, smoking, drinking, hurting the body that God gave you because of the stress you go through. You need to go to God too. It's not just the poor. God is for everyone. And so she did have something. And so I'm asking you before I close to look again. Don't just get so, thank goodness we've got thank goodness you've got it. But listen, continue to plan for your life. Continue to go before God because He is our source. He's your real help. To have money and not peace is no good. To have peace and not money, you can still make it. But not to have peace, you need peace. And God gives peace. Ask him for it. Even if you have to cry out and release the pain and the shame and the guilt and whatever it is you're going through. Release, give it to him. Our bodies were not made to handle it. So, the man of God tells her what to do. He says, go borrow some bottles, borrow not a few, he said. Now, realistically, our mindset would have said, it's only a little bit of oil. Why do I need bottles? It's just a little bit. But she followed instruction. She was obedient to the instruction. And her sons did it. He said, go in your house, close the door with your sons. And she began to pour. And as she began to pour, the bottles were being filled. What gift, what talent do you have that you're not using? Because you're just like, nobody needs that. People who never thought they were going to sew again were making masks. People needed it. What do you have that you're not pouring out from your vessel, from your body, from the gifts, from the talents that God has given you? And you're just sitting there because you feel hopeless. Get up from there if that's you. Stop wasting precious time. You've got something to offer. Use it. Do it. I don't care if it's your voice. I'm just using my voice. And I know it's encouraging someone. Not because of me, but because when God gives you a gift, you have to know that it is your gift that he has blessed you with to be used for his glory. What can you do today? What source can you pour from? Can you encourage someone? Can you make something? Can you show someone? Can you talk to them about what it feels like to go through difficulty? People need to hear that. Some people they were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. This is devastating to some people. Can you help them through this? Tell them how, hey, buy a bag of potatoes. Go get some starch. Get some leafy, get some sauce. Make a big pot of spaghetti. Okay, take those potatoes, cut those babies up. Do a couple of things with them. Boil them a little bit. Make some mashed potatoes. Make some potato salad. Put them in the oven. Put some salt and pepper on those babies and make a couple of meals for a couple of days. You can show them because you've been there. Don't waste that. That's good stuff. And so she poured, as he said, and poured. And then she said, come on, give me another one. And they said, well, there are no more. We don't have any more. I wonder how many did she have? I wonder if she had faith enough to say, listen, I know your arms are full, boys, but go back out and get some more. Because I believe the man of God, I believe that God will give him a message for us that we will not have to die in this state. You don't have to die in that state. Keep living. Keep hoping. Keep seeing yourself in a better place. Seeing yourself strengthened. Seeing yourself healed. Seeing yourself empowered after this. In the midst of this. Whatever it is. See yourself in a different place. We don't give up in the middle. Giving up in the middle forfeits our future. We don't do that. Even as hard as it gets, God be with us. You were with Daniel in the lion's den. You were with the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. You were with the children of Israel as they went through the midst of the Red Sea to get to the other side away from their enemies who were following hard behind them. You were with so many people. God, be with us and help us not to waste this time. Humanity is love. Humanity is looking at other people and saying, just because you're in that situation, I will not treat you less than. Nobody deserves that. Not even a dog. Some people will treat a dog better, the cat better than they will treat a human being. We must stop that. We must ask God's forgiveness for that. Because I know that he does not like it. If you don't like it, and God created us to love each other, to love him mostly, and we treat each other so horribly, It's time for us to make a change and stop this big I, little you business. It sucks. It stinks. It's not good. We've got to do better as a nation, as a community, as a people. We've got to do better. Why did it have to take this pandemic for people to start to see that they need to stop lording in a negative way over those who are suffering? My God, we've got to do better. All right. That's what I have to say today. This is Real Talk with Yadida. So, what are you going to do differently, my friend? Come on, get up from there. I know it's been tough. I know this hurts. I know some of you have gone through things. I have too. But I will continue to open my mouth and come on here and encourage you and motivate you and empower you to know that you've got to keep going and that you have something that is worth it. And most of all, that you are worth it. If I were to tell you some of the things I've encountered in the midst of this, some of you would be shocked. And you would say, but you're still coming on? Yes. You see, because my gift does not stop because of my circumstance. When I feel broken, I do not stop. Because I don't want God to say to me, what did you do with what I gave you? Did you use it? Did you hide it? Were you ashamed? Were you so down because of your situation that you went and you hid? I will not. Because that's what the enemy wants you to do. It's what he wants me to do. Go sit down and shut up. You know you embarrassed. You know that person said all those lies to you. They hurt you. They blamed you. They talked about you wrongfully. They stood up and they stood against you and they put their fingers in your face and told you were everything but a child of God. This is where you're going to have to know that you know who you are, not what people say about you. Don't own that junk. You are not a garbage can. If God says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made and that he loves you and that he sent his only begotten son to die for you because he loves you so that you will not have to go to hell, so that you will have hope, so that you can be comforted in the time of sorrow, then you've got to live up to what he says you are. Yes, they're going to talk about you. They talked about Jesus. Yes, they're going to lie about you and stand up and puff up their chest and say all kinds of evil against you. But you've still got to keep going. There are no excuses. No excuses. Get up from there. If you're down, you've got to live through this. Because there is another life after this. There is something else after this. This is our flesh, our body, we're living. But there's another life. There is a thing called heaven. There is a thing called hell. There's more to the story. And we want to be in a place of peace with God. And believe it or not, in spite of all the stuff that's going on around us, we can still have peace here on earth. Doesn't that sound wild? But it's true. As soon as we start giving this pain to God, giving our disappointments, even with ourselves, giving our shame, giving our hurt, the things that people have done and said to us to God, release it. Forgive so you can live in a place called peace. And if it's hard, ask God to help you with it, because he can. And let us step across these lines, these invisible barriers that have kept us apart for so long. And I get it, there's social distancing. But what I'm saying is, you can still show love and be supportive, not always with money. Sometimes it's just your love that people need. They don't need you ridiculing them. And I'm talking to believers too and Christians. Shame on you. Shame on you. Do better. Do better. We can't be the worst. The world is looking for an answer. Get it together. Believers, Christians. Get the filth off. Ask God to take the ashes and the brokenness, because many are spewing out venom that God never intended for you to spew on his lambs and his flock. Please do better. This is Real Talk. And this is your host, Yadida. We must do better, because we are humanity. And if we can't love each other, if a dog can love, if a bear can love, if a cat can love, and we are human and our cognitive ability supersedes theirs, we've got to do better. Join me on some of my other platforms. Who am I? I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about helping those and speaking up for those who others deem as unnecessary. How dare you? If that's you, you've got to do better. Maybe someone hurt you and you're dealing with a transference issue. Please don't. People need you too. And the more that you push people down, you're going to heap coals of fire on your head for no reason. Don't do that. Deal with your inner hurt, pain, rejection. We all have to. I have to. Some of us have been molested as children, and we are yet dealing with the pain of that. And that's painful, but we've got to start to deal with those things. Don't just accept them. This is my life. I was molested. I'm always going to be broken. Come on now. I'm speaking to you from a place of knowing. I saw my molester when I was older. I was walking and there he was, and I had to deal with it. The first time I saw him, I wanted to knock him off of his bike. I had to deal with that. I hadn't forgiven. And sometimes, yes, we have to forgive those who wrong us, who shame us, who blame us, who don't appreciate us. God's forgiven me. I've done some things. Even if it wasn't acts, it was thoughts, it was words. How could you not extend mercy, human being? We've got to do better. I know it hurts. But see, the forgiveness is not so much even for the other person. It's because God said we must. And then you're going to feel a sense of, it's like a liberating feeling. At first I didn't forgive, but when I finally did, it took some years, and it didn't have to, but it did, because I wasn't focused on it. Focus on the areas of forgiveness, the places, the brokenness. You will heal if you do it. If you say, God, this has been a lot. I'm upset. Speak to him just like you would talk to me. I'm upset. This hurts. This is painful. I don't know why I had to go through that. Talk to him from that space. Not like, oh, great, omnipotent, almighty. You can say that. But sometimes you just have to speak to him as a child who's hurting, who's wounded, because you were hurted. You were wounded. You were hurt back then, hurted. Did y'all hear me say that? You were hurt as a child. And so sometimes you've got to come. God says, come to me as a child anyway, because he knows that we were hurt as children. And when we hurt as children, sometimes we will continue to hurt. Let's get rid of that too. Let's get rid of it so that we won't have generational curses and generational madness. As my child said, we were talking and I was like, and she was just like, Mommy, it's a word for it. Because we had gone through something and she was thinking and she said, Mommy, that's generational madness. And I said, I love that. We don't want to have generational madness. So come on, it's time to heal. It's time to forgive. It's time to use those gifts. It's time to rise above. It's time to not believing the dung and the filth that says you'll never be better and you'll never amount to anything. How could you not? When you are a child of God, those are the enemy's words. And maybe you're saying, well, I'm not a child. I don't love God. Well, you can be. I wasn't either before. Let's not do that. I didn't love him before either. I didn't want to hear the name of Jesus. I was like, get that stuff away from me. But he was merciful to me. He could have struck me with lightning. He could have taken me out. But I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad that he loved me in spite of my foolishness. And he can love you in spite of yours. Because that's just the kind of God he is. So run to him while we have time. All right? We have grace now. I don't know how long we'll have it with the way the world is going. But since we've got it, it's okay for you to run to him. Even if nobody's perfect. Don't ever say, I'm so filthy. Someone said to me a long time ago, if I go inside that church, it's going to fall down. I'm such a mess. That is not true. That's a lie. Don't believe that. That's not true. And now, guess what? You don't even have to step into the church. You can do it right where you are because God sees you now. He's listening for your voice. So you talk to him because I'm talking to him on your behalf. I'm praying for you that you don't give up. My book is on Amazon. I always forget to say this. But I wrote it for you. And it speaks about a lot of the struggles I've been through and how God has brought me through each and every single one of them. And I truly believe he's going to take me through this too. He'll take you through it too. It's called Don't Give Up, Acknowledging the Struggle, Celebrating Resilience. It's on Amazon. It's on Ingram Spark. There's a KDP version as well. I invite you to get the book. I invite you to read it. The beginning of it, I did it in a way like, it's I'm telling a story in the beginning, like so that, authors were creative, so that you can hear the story. But so much of it is very real. And then after that part, I go into my reality of what I actually went through and encourage you from that space. So get it, read it, and be encouraged. And keep on going. Please don't give up. Don't take your life. Those of you who have been thinking about it, don't do that. Please don't. Just ask God to help you and to be with you in this trouble. Okay? You can make it through this. You better not. Don't do it. People say you commit suicide, you go to hell. I don't know what happens when people take their last breath. That's not for me to say. They probably say, Lord, forgive me. I made a mistake. Just don't do it. We need you to live. If you have children, they need you to live. And I know you would be saying, I'm worthless. I didn't have enough. Listen, a lot of people didn't have enough. A lot of people didn't think this was going to happen. You are not a misfit. You are needed. You matter. Your life matters. So don't give up. Join me on my other platforms, Pep Talk with Yadida. And those of you who have children with epilepsy or a caregiver special needs, it's called Unapologetically Purple. Because we just need to be unapologetic. Nobody asked for some of these things. It just happened. And I get upset when I meet people who try to act like a parent is trying to ride on their child's disability. Foolishness. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. Be kind. Stop being so mean. I'm speaking to some people out there, and you know who you are. Please stop. And no parent, I know. I've lived your struggle. I've lived the days when you're like, Dag, I don't even know what to do. I've been there. I know what it feels like, but you've got to keep going. Do not listen to those people. Okay, please don't. Reject that. Reject it, okay? I'll tune in again. I know I just pop on whenever I get ready. I need to give you all a structured schedule, but I'm just not ready to do that. But I will, hopefully, one day soon. Keep on going. You matter. Humanity matters. And believe it or not, we are all in this together. So keep going and don't give up. You've been listening to Real Talk with Yadida. Until next time, don't you dare give up.